She paid for first class. She had the boarding pass. She had every right to that seat. But the woman already sitting there smiled like Ava was confused, like she didn't belong. When Ava asked her to move, the woman said 4 words that poisoned the entire cabin. "I feel unsafe." Suddenly the airline wanted Ava to be the one who left. Suddenly 100 strangers were staring at her like she was the problem. And the plane wasn't moving until someone surrendered. Subscribe right now, because what Ava did next grounded more than just the flight. Ava arrived at gate C12 with 40 minutes to spare. She carried a slim briefcase and the kind of calm people mistook for softness. The terminal buzzed with morning travelers, voices layered over gate announcements, and the scrape of rolling luggage. At the counter, the gate agent's smile tightened when she saw Ava's first-class boarding pass. The woman studied the screen longer than necessary. "Are you sure this is yours?" the agent asked. Ava felt the familiar pinch. "Yes. I purchased it 2 weeks ago. Let me just verify." The agent's fingers moved across the keyboard. Her eyes flicked up and down between Ava's face and the screen. "Okay, you're all set." Ava nodded and walked away. Her chest tightened. The day already tasted faintly metallic. She found a seat near the window and opened her tablet. The merger documents waited. Contracts that would fund clinics in underserved neighborhoods. Her CFO had texted twice already. The investors wanted confidence, precision, and her presence. A woman in scrubs sat 3 seats away. She looked exhausted. Her eyes carried the particular guardedness Ava recognized in other black women navigating professional spaces. The woman's badge read, "Nina Clark, MD." Across from Ava, a man in his 50s adjusted his reading glasses. He glanced at Ava briefly, then away, as if kindness might invite conversation he didn't have energy for. The boarding announcement crackled overhead. "We will now begin boarding for Flight 447 to Chicago. First class and premium passengers, please approach the gate." Ava stood. She joined the line with her boarding pass ready. The gate agent scanned it without meeting her eyes. "Thank you, Dr. Robinson," the agent said. Her voice softened into that particular tone reserved for people being managed, not welcomed. Ava walked down the jet bridge. The air felt close. She told herself she was traveling for purpose, not permission. The clinics needed this funding. Families needed those clinics. She stepped into the aircraft. The first-class cabin smelled of leather and recycled air. She moved toward row 2. A blonde woman sat in 2A. She wore designer athleisure and had headphones on. A drink rested in the armrest cup holder. Her knees angled outward. She had claimed territory. Ava stopped beside the row. "Excuse me," she said gently. "I believe you're in my seat." The woman lifted her eyes slowly. She smiled as if amused. "This is first class," she said. She let the words hang. Ava's stomach tightened, not from fear, from recognition. The woman in 2A looked at Ava as if she'd asked an unreasonable question. Her smile stayed fixed. "I have seat 2A, Ava said. She kept her voice steady. "Could you check your boarding pass?" "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The woman adjusted her headphones without removing them. Her posture radiated entitlement. Ava felt the familiar weight settle in. She had heard variations of this script before. In boardrooms, in restaurants, in spaces where her presence required justification. A flight attendant approached. She had dark hair pulled into a neat bun and a name tag that read, Marisol Chen. Her smile was practiced, bright, meant to smooth wrinkles out of reality. "Is everything okay here?" Marisol asked. Ava held up her boarding pass. "I'm assigned to 2A. This passenger is in my seat." Marisol glanced at the boarding pass. Her eyes moved to the woman in the seat. "Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass?" The woman sighed. She rummaged in her purse with theatrical slowness. "I must have put it away already." "Do you remember your seat number?" Marisol asked. "This one, obviously." The woman gestured at the space around her. "I boarded early, first class." Marisol's smile thinned. "Let me check the manifest." Other passengers filed past. They glanced at the holdup. Some frowned. Ava felt their impatience press against her back. Marisol returned with a tablet. She looked at Ava. "Dr. Robinson, I see you're confirmed in 2A, but we're running behind schedule." She paused. Her voice dropped. "Would you be willing to take another seat, just for today? We can sort this out, but it might delay departure." Ava felt humiliation flare. Not because she was weak, because the solution required her to shrink. "No," Ava said quietly. "I paid for this seat. I'm not moving because someone else refuses to." The woman in 2A smiled wider. She had won something just by making the room uncomfortable. Ava stood in the aisle. Passengers behind her shifted their weight. Someone coughed meaningfully. Marisol's professionalism wavered. "Ma'am, I understand, but—" "I'm not moving," Ava said. She didn't raise her voice. She raised a boundary. The woman in 2A removed her headphones slowly. "This is ridiculous. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes. Maybe she boarded too early by mistake." Ava's jaw tightened. "I boarded when first class was called. My pass says 2A. I'm not mistaken." Marisol looked at the growing line of passengers. Her eyes held the calculation Ava had seen before. Time, pressure, metrics. The airline rewarded on-time departures, not fairness. "Let me get my supervisor," Marisol said. "No need." The woman waved a hand. "I'm not moving. She can take another seat or file a complaint later." Ava felt the old reflex rise, the urge to apologize for existing in a contested space. She rejected it. A man across the cour aisle watched. He had salt and pepper hair and tired eyes. He looked at Ava, then at the woman in 2A. His jaw tightened. But he said nothing. Nina Clark passed through first class on her way to economy. She slowed just enough to take in the scene. Her eyes met Ava's for a second. Then she moved on, carrying the image with her. The aircraft door closed. The sound was final, heavy. It made everyone's choices heavier, too. Marisol stepped closer to Ava. Her voice was low. "Dr. Robinson, please, just for the flight. We can address this later." "No." Ava's voice was soft but immovable. "I won't be moved to make someone else's disrespect easier to manage." The woman in 2A sighed loudly. She glanced around the cabin as if searching for allies. The silence felt like agreement. Marisol's face flushed. She looked trapped. The aircraft sat at the gate. The engines hummed, but the plane didn't move. The woman in 2A leaned back in the seat. She crossed her arms. "I'm comfortable here. Thank you." Marisol stepped into the galley. She spoke quietly into a phone. Ava remained standing. Her briefcase felt heavier with each passing second. Other passengers murmured. A businessman in row 3 shook his head. A couple in row 1 exchanged glances that said they'd picked a side without knowing the facts. The man across the aisle, Evan, stared at his hands. He had been a teacher for 30 years. He had made a vow to himself years ago. A vow to stop being the kind of man who watched harm and called it not his business. But fear gripped him. Fear of social friction. Fear of being wrong. Fear of the scene growing larger. Marisol returned. "Dr. Robinson, I need you to step into the galley for a moment, just to talk privately." Ava hesitated. The request sounded reasonable, but it required the harmed person to retreat. "Why?" Ava asked. Please. Marisol's eyes were apologetic but firm. Ava stepped into the galley. The space felt tight. Marisol followed. Listen, Marisol said. I believe you, but this passenger is claiming she feels unsafe now. Ava's breath caught. Unsafe? She says you're being aggressive, that you're making her uncomfortable. Ava felt the trap close. The word unsafe was a weapon. It flipped scripts. It made the victim into the aggressor. I haven't raised my voice, Ava said. I haven't moved toward her. I asked for my seat, that's all. I know. Marisol looked pained. But once someone says they feel unsafe, we have protocols. I'm trying to avoid escalating this. You're asking me to retreat to de-escalate someone else's lie, Ava said. Marisol didn't answer. She didn't have to. The answer was yes. Ava returned to the aisle. She looked at 2A. The woman smiled. She had won simply by staging fear. Evan heard the word unsafe echo in his mind. His own cowardice felt louder now. It had a timer on it. Captain Daniel Reyes's voice filled the cabin. It was calm, official, designed to reassure. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We're experiencing a brief delay due to a seating compliance issue. We'll have you on your way shortly. Thank you for your patience. The murmurs rose instantly. Annoyance searched for a target. Ava felt eyes turning toward her. No one knew the facts, but people chose sides anyway. The woman in 2A leaned back. Her posture radiated satisfaction. She had made the room uncomfortable. She had made Ava the problem. Marisol returned with her tablet. She studied the screen. Her face tightened. She looked at the woman. Ma'am, the manifest shows Dr. Robinson in 2A. Can you please show me your boarding pass now? I told you I put it away. The woman's voice sharpened. Why are you harassing me? I'm not harassing anyone. I'm verifying seat assignments. This is discrimination. The woman's voice rose. I've been sitting here peacefully, and now you're treating me like a criminal because of her complaint. Ava said nothing. She had learned that silence was sometimes the only dignity left. Evan's hands trembled. He wanted to speak. He wanted to say he'd seen Ava present her boarding pass immediately. But his voice stayed locked in his throat. A businessman in row 4, Graham Whitlock, glanced up from his phone. Can we just figure this out? Some of us have connections. Marisol's professionalism cracked slightly. I'm working on it, sir. The aircraft stopped moving. The stillness felt like judgment. Ava thought of her meeting, her team, the clinics she had promised. One woman's entitlement could stall 100 lives. She looked at her phone. The time mocked her. But she would not move. Not for this. The plane stayed grounded. The cabin waited. And Ava held her ground. Marisol took a breath. She straightened her shoulders. Ma'am, according to our records, seat 2A is assigned to Dr. Robinson. I need to see your boarding pass, now. The woman's mask slipped. Anger flashed hot beneath the performance. I already told you, I'm in the right seat. The airline obviously upgraded me. We don't issue silent upgrades, Marisol said. Her voice was quiet but firm. Then your system is wrong. The woman gestured at Ava. She needs to be relocated. I'm not moving. Ava felt her heart steady. She had reached a decision. She would rather miss the meeting than teach the cabin that bullying worked. Marisol looked at Ava. Dr. Robinson, I'm sorry. I need to call my supervisor and possibly airport security to resolve this. Do what you need to do, Ava said. Evan swallowed hard. He realized this wasn't about a seat anymore. It was about the kind of world his silence helped build. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Fear won again, but the shame stayed. Captain Reyes's voice returned. Ladies and gentlemen, We'll be returning to the gate to resolve a passenger issue. We apologize for the inconvenience." The cabin groaned. Someone cursed under their breath. A woman in row 5 asked her husband what was happening. He shrugged and said it was probably someone making a scene. Ava held her gaze forward. Her chest felt tight. But her mind was clear. She was committed now, to confrontation, to truth, whatever it cost. The woman in 2A crossed her arms. "This is insane. I'm going to sue." Marisol didn't respond. She walked toward the cockpit. The aircraft rolled back toward the terminal. The movement felt reluctant, slow, as if the plane itself didn't want to witness what came next. Ava stood beside row 2. She didn't sit. She didn't move. She simply waited. The cabin filled with tension. It hung in the air. It pressed against skin. It made everyone complicit in the outcome. And in that moment, Ava knew she had chosen the harder path. The right path. The path that required her to stand. The plane reached the gate. The engines quieted. Passengers muttered and sighed. A few stared openly at Ava. She was the inconvenience in their minds. The cause of delay. The problem. The woman in 2A performed innocence loudly. "I don't understand why I'm being targeted. I haven't done anything wrong." Marisol's professionalism thinned. Strain showed in the corners of her eyes. Embarrassment colored her cheeks. She had been trained to keep calm. But keeping calm had become keeping unfair. A gate agent boarded. Behind her came a man in a supervisor's uniform. His name tag read, Kevin Pratt. He looked tired. He looked like he'd handled 50 versions of this scene. "What's the situation?" Pratt asked. Marisol explained. She spoke carefully, factually, but her voice carried the weight of someone who knew the airline would blame her either way. The woman in 2A launched immediately. "I've been sitting here peacefully. This woman demanded I move. When I asked for time to find my boarding pass, she got aggressive. The flight attendant has been harassing me ever since." Ava's stomach turned. The lie was smooth, practiced. The woman had done this before. "Is that accurate?" Pratt asked Ava. "No," Ava said. "I showed my boarding pass immediately. She refused to show hers. She claimed the seat without proof." Graham Whitlock looked up. He made a remark to the passenger beside him. "People make everything about race these days." He said it just loud enough, just quiet enough to pretend he hadn't meant for anyone to hear. Ava didn't respond to him. She responded to herself. She reminded her mind that dignity didn't require debate. Evan leaned toward Graham. His mouth opened. He wanted to say that Graham was wrong, that he'd witnessed the exchange, that Ava had been calm the entire time. But fear gripped him. Fear of social friction. Fear of being seen as taking sides. He closed his mouth. The moment passed. And Evan hated himself a little more. Nina watched from economy. The scene had traveled down the aisle. She saw how quickly people chose comfort over truth. Marisol returned to Ava. Her voice was softer now, almost apologetic. "Dr. Robinson, I need to say something." She glanced at Pratt, then back at Ava. "I'm sorry I suggested you move earlier. That was wrong." Ava heard the confession without triumph. She had seen good people become instruments of bad habits before. "Thank you," Ava said quietly. "The airline trains us to de-escalate," Marisol continued. "They reward speed, not justice. We're taught to appease the loudest person because it prevents scenes. But that's not fair. I see that now." Ava nodded. Her throat tightened. Not with anger. With something sadder. Recognition of how systems broke people into compliance. Evan heard the exchange. He heard Marisol's honesty. It made his earlier silence feel worse. heavier, inexcusable. He stood. His legs felt shaky. He walked toward Pratt. "Excuse me," Evans said. His voice came out smaller than he wanted. "I saw what happened." Pratt looked at him. "You're a witness?" "Yes." Dr. Robinson presented her boarding pass immediately. She was calm. She asked politely. The other passenger refused to provide proof of her seat assignment. The words came out. They were small, but they were a beginning. Marisol's eyes met Evans. She nodded. The gesture said, "Thank you." It said, "You did the right thing." It said, "This matters." The woman in 2A glared at Evan. "You're lying. You weren't even paying attention." "I was," Evan said. His voice steadied. "I saw everything." Pratt wrote something in a small notebook. "Okay, let me verify the manifest." He pulled out a tablet. His fingers moved across the screen. The cabin waited. Silence stretched. It hung heavy over the rows. Ava felt her heart beat in her chest. She felt the weight of time slipping away. Her meeting, the merger, the clinics, all of it balanced on this moment. Pratt looked up. His face was neutral, but something had shifted. The plane had rolled back with reluctant slowness. Now it sat at the gate. Passengers filled the silence with mutters and sighs. A man in row 6 checked his watch repeatedly. A woman whispered to her companion about missed connections. Eyes turned toward Ava. She felt the weight of their stares. She was the author of inconvenience in their minds, the cause of their delay. The woman in 2A, her name tag on her designer bag read Brittany Hale, spoke loudly. "I can't believe I'm being targeted like this. I've never been treated this way." Her voice carried through the cabin. It invited sympathy. It framed her as the victim. Pratt studied his tablet. His expression gave nothing away. Marisol stood beside him. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. Brittany continued. "I have 1 million followers on social media. People will hear about this, about how your airline treats innocent passengers." Ava felt exhaustion creep in. Not from standing, from the performance, from watching someone weaponize victimhood. Evan remained standing in the aisle. His presence was quiet, but it was presence. It counted for something. Graham shook his head. "Ha," muttered to the passenger beside him. "If she'd just taken another seat, we'd be in the air by now." Marisol turned toward Graham. Her voice was firm. "Sir, that's not how seat assignments work." Graham blinked. He hadn't expected to be corrected. He returned to his phone. Nina watched from economy. She had seen this before. The way blame shifted. The way the harmed person became the problem. She thought of hospital board meetings, of patients who questioned her credentials, of colleagues who spoke over her. She thought of all the times she had stayed quiet to survive. Pratt finally looked up. "Ma'am, can you provide your boarding pass now?" Brittany's jaw tightened. "I already explained. I must have left it at the gate counter." "Then we'll verify through the system," Pratt said. Pratt scrolled through the manifest. His finger paused on the screen. He looked at Brittany, then at Ava, then back at the screen. "According to our records, Dr. Ava Robinson is assigned to seat 2A, Pratt said. "There's no record of an upgrade or reassignment for this seat." Brittany's face flushed. "Your system is obviously wrong. I was told I could sit here." "By whom?" Pratt asked. "The gate agent. She said first-class passengers could choose available seats." "That's not our policy," Pratt said. "And this seat isn't available, it's assigned." Graham leaned toward the passenger beside him again. "This is what happens when people make everything about identity politics." His voice was quiet, but not quiet enough. Ava heard it. She felt the accusation settle over her. She hadn't mentioned race. She hadn't mentioned discrimination. She had only asked for her seat. But asking was enough to be accused. Evan heard Graham's comment. Something shifted in his chest. Anger replaced fear, not loud anger, quiet, determined anger. He turned toward Graham. She's not making it about anything. She paid for that seat. She has proof. The other passenger doesn't. Graham looked surprised. I'm just saying there are better ways to handle things. Like giving up what you paid for? Evan asked. Would you do that? Graham didn't answer. He returned to his phone. But his face was red. Marisol felt something loosen in her chest. Relief. Gratitude. Someone else had spoken up. She wasn't alone in seeing the injustice. Brittany's voice rose. This is harassment. I'm being harassed because of her complaint. No one is harassing you, Pratt said. We're verifying seat assignments. That's standard procedure. I know my rights, Brittany said. I know when I'm being discriminated against. Ava's breath caught. The inversion was breathtaking. Brittany had stolen her seat, had refused to provide proof, had staged fear to weaponize policy, and now she claimed discrimination. Ma'am, I need you to calm down, Pratt said. Don't tell me to calm down, Brittany snapped. I'm calm. I'm perfectly calm. She's the one causing problems. Ava said nothing. Silence was her weapon now. She let Brittany's performance speak for itself. Nina felt something harden in her chest. She had watched women like Brittany before, women who used tears and volume to rewrite reality. She pulled out her phone. She began typing notes, just in case. Marisol approached Ava again. Her voice was low. Private. Dr. Robinson, I want you to know I'm filing a report about what happened, Marisol said. About the suggestion I made earlier. About the pressure to move you instead of enforcing the assignment. Ava looked at her. Won't that get you in trouble? Probably, Marisol said, but I'm tired of peace that requires someone else's suffering. Ava felt something shift, not victory, something deeper, connection. Recognition that courage wasn't a personality trait. It was a decision people made repeatedly. Thank you, Ava said. Marisol nodded. She returned to Pratt's side. Evan approached Ava. His hands were shaking slightly. I should have spoken up sooner, he said. In the beginning, when it started. But you spoke up now, Ava said. It shouldn't have taken this long. Evan's voice was thick. I've done this before. Stayed quiet. Told myself it wasn't my business. I'm tired of being that person. Ava saw the shame in his eyes. She also saw the determination. Courage isn't something you have, she said. It's something you do, repeatedly, often late. Evan nodded. His eyes were wet. If the airline needs a statement, I'll write one. I'll sign it. Whatever helps. Thank you, Ava said. As Evan returned to his seat, Ava felt the pain of the moment shift. It wasn't only about defending her dignity anymore. It was about inviting someone else to wake up. Brittany watched the exchange. Her expression darkened. She was losing control of the narrative, losing the room. This is ridiculous, Brittany said loudly. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes. If the seat was so important, why didn't she speak up immediately? I did, Ava said quietly. You refused to check your pass. Because I knew I was right, Brittany shot back. Pratt closed his tablet. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to provide your boarding pass or move to your assigned seat. I don't have it, Brittany said. I told you that. Then we'll need to verify your assignment another way. Pratt gestured to Marisol. Can you check if this passenger checked in for this flight? Marisol nodded. She pulled out her phone and began typing. Brittany rummaged through her purse. The movement was theatrical, exaggerated. She pulled out a crumpled boarding pass with a flourish. "Here," she said. "Are you happy now?" She thrust it toward Pratt. Her smile was triumphant. The cabin leaned toward her. Paper meant legitimacy. Paper meant proof. Pratt took the pass. He studied it. His eyes moved slowly across the information. Ava felt her stomach tighten. What if there had been a mistake? What if the system had double-booked? Pratt looked up. His pause was unmistakable. Something didn't match. "Ma'am, this boarding pass is for seat 12C, Pratt said. The cabin went silent. Brittany's smile faltered. "What? No, that's wrong. They must have printed it wrong at the gate." "Boarding passes are generated by the system," Pratt said. "They don't print incorrectly." "Then your system made a mistake," Brittany insisted. "I was told I had a first-class seat." "By whom?" Pratt asked again. Brittany hesitated. "The gate agent, I told you." "Which gate agent?" "I don't remember her name." Brittany's voice sharpened. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm asking for clarification," Pratt said calmly. Marisol looked up from her phone. "Sir, the passenger is checked in for 12C. There's no upgrade notation in the system." Brittany's face flushed darker. "I'm not moving. I've been sitting here. Possession is 9/10 of the law." Ava felt a strange mix of emotions. Not satisfaction. Something sadder. She had been right. But being right meant watching someone else's desperation unfold. Evan's hands trembled again, but this time with relief, with validation. He had been right to speak up. Graham glanced at the scene, then away. His earlier certainty evaporated. He became suddenly interested in the safety card in the seat pocket. Brittany smiled too early. She smiled as if she'd already won. As if volume and certainty could override documentation. "I'm not embarrassing myself by arguing with you," Brittany said to Marisol. "You're clearly not trained properly." Marisol's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed level. "Ma'am, your boarding pass confirms you're assigned to 12C. "Then I'll file a complaint about false advertising," Brittany said. "But I'm not moving." Pratt stepped away. He spoke quietly into his radio. Ava heard fragments. "Passenger refusing assigned seat. Need supervisor?" The plane waited. The cabin held its breath. Airport operations boarded. 2 people in uniforms. They carried quiet authority. Their presence changed the room's temperature. The lead supervisor was a woman named Carla Santos. She had gray hair and steady eyes. She looked at Pratt. "What's the situation?" Pratt explained. He spoke factually, without embellishment. He presented the boarding passes, the manifest, the witness statement from Evan. Brittany launched immediately. "I've been harassed for the last half hour. This woman accused me of stealing her seat. When I asked for time to find my documentation, she became aggressive. The crew has been targeting me ever since." Her voice trembled. It was a calculated tremor, designed to evoke protection. "I asked politely," Ava said. Her voice was calm, steady. "I showed my boarding pass immediately. She refused to show hers until now. Her pass confirms she's in 12C. I'm in 2A. Santos looked at Evan. "You witnessed this?" "Yes," Evan said. "Dr. Robinson was calm. She asked to see the boarding pass. The other passenger refused. She claimed the seat, without proof." Brittany glared at Evan. "You're lying. You weren't even paying attention." "I was," Evan said. His voice was firmer now, stronger. "I heard the entire exchange." Santos examined the boarding passes. She looked at the manifest on Pratt's tablet. She asked Marisol for her account. Marisol told the truth. She admitted suggesting Ava move. She admitted the pressure to prioritize departure over fairness. She admitted her mistake. Graham watched. He felt something uncomfortable settle in his chest. His earlier comment suddenly seemed cruel, careless. He looked at his phone and pretended the scene didn't concern him. Nina typed quickly on her phone. She documented what she could see. The refusal, the escalation, the way Brittany's story changed with each retelling. Santos turned to Brittany. "Ma'am, your boarding pass clearly states 12C. You're not assigned to first class." "The gate agent upgraded me," Brittany insisted. "It was verbal. She said I could choose any available first-class seat." "That's not our policy," Santos said. "And even if it were, this seat is not available. It's assigned and occupied by its ticketed passenger." "I was here first," Brittany said. "That doesn't change your assignment," Santos said. Brittany's performance shifted. Her voice grew louder, sharper. "This is discrimination. I'm being punished because of her complaint." Ava felt the accusation land. But it bounced off now. The truth was documented, witnessed, undeniable. Santos requested documentation from the manifest. She confirmed Ava's assignment. She confirmed no upgrade had been processed. She confirmed Brittany had boarded with a 12C assignment. The facts were clear. Santos spoke Ava's name aloud. "Dr. Robinson, I apologize for this disruption." An airline liaison from the gate stepped into the cabin. She was young, efficient, carrying a tablet. She heard the name and paused. Her eyes widened. Ava felt a flicker of dread. Not because she feared exposure, because she knew what recognition did. It rearranged people's respect into something conditional. The liaison approached. "Dr. Robinson, I thought I recognized your name on the manifest." Ava nodded carefully. "We met last year at the Healthcare Tech Summit," the liaison said. "You gave the keynote about equitable access. It was incredible." The liaison's voice carried formal warmth. It confirmed Ava's professional stature without Ava saying a word. Brittany's face changed. Calculations shifted behind her eyes. Her indignation faltered. She had chosen the wrong target. Ava's stomach turned, not with satisfaction, with sadness. The world listened better when it heard a title, when it knew status, when it could measure worth through professional achievement. The liaison turned to Santos. "Dr. Robinson is confirmed in 2A. Is there a problem?" "We're resolving it now," Santos said. Brittany leaned back. Her performance shifted again. "I didn't know. I didn't realize she was important." Ava felt the sentence hit her chest. She was important now, but she hadn't been 5 minutes ago. Her humanity had required verification. Evan watched. He saw the shift in the room. He saw how respect materialized when titles appeared. He felt ashamed that it had taken this long, that it had required this much. Graham glanced up. His face was carefully neutral now. He was recalculating, adjusting his judgment based on new information. Nina stopped typing. She stared at her phone. She thought about all the times her credentials hadn't mattered, all the times she'd been questioned despite her white coat, despite her MD, despite everything. Santos looked from Ava to Brittany. The cabin held its breath. The moral math had shifted. Reality had reasserted itself. But Ava knew something the room didn't yet understand. This shouldn't have taken professional recognition. It should have taken only her word, only her boarding pass, only her humanity. She had won. But the victory felt hollow. Santos confirmed the facts one final time. "Ms. Hale, you are assigned to seat 12C. Dr. Robinson is assigned to seat 2A. You need to move to your assigned seat immediately." Brittany tried one last pivot. "There must have been confusion. I thought the gate agent said first class. She must have said something that made me think. You'll need to move now, Santos said. Her voice was kind but immovable. Brittany's face crumpled, not with sadness, with rage contained beneath a thin veneer of civility. This is ridiculous. I've been sitting here peacefully. Now you're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal. No one is treating you that way, Santos said. We're enforcing seating assignments. That's standard policy. Brittany gathered her things slowly, deliberately. Each movement a protest, her drink, her headphones, her designer bag. Ava stood beside the row, waiting. She felt fatigue press in, the meeting, the merger, the clinics, all of it balanced on a timeline that was slipping away. Brittany stood finally. She looked at Ava. Her eyes were cold. I hope you're proud of yourself. You've delayed an entire plane because you couldn't be flexible. Ava spoke softly. Not to defeat Brittany, to correct the room. It shouldn't have taken me being a CEO for anyone to believe me. The sentence settled over the passengers. Gentle, heavy, undeniable. Marisol's eyes shone. Something like relief mixed with shame. She had learned something. She had changed something. She would carry this forward. Evan felt the moral ground steady under his feet. He had spoken. He had witnessed. He had chosen truth over comfort. It felt clean. Right. Graham looked down. The comment he'd made earlier burned in his memory. He couldn't take it back. He could only carry it forward. A quiet reckoning. Nina felt something loosen in her chest. She had watched someone stand. Someone refuse to shrink. Someone win without violence or spectacle. She thought of tomorrow. Of the next time a patient questioned her credentials. She would remember this. Santos instructed Brittany toward economy. Your assigned seat is in cabin 2. Brittany's anger surged. She refused to move toward the aisle. I'm not going back there. I'll get off the plane. I'll take another flight. That's your choice, Santos said, but you cannot remain in a seat that isn't yours. Brittany stood frozen. Her final performance. Her last attempt to make the room save her from consequences. It didn't work. Santos radioed for assistance. 2 security officers boarded. They were calm, professional. They had done this before. Ma'am, you need to move to your assigned seat or deplane, one officer said. Brittany's performance collapsed into open hostility. This is outrageous. I've been a loyal customer for years. I'll be calling corporate. I'll be posting about this. Everyone will know how I was treated. That's your right, the officer said, but you still need to move. Brittany gathered her belongings with sharp, angry movements. She glanced around the cabin one last time, searching for support, for validation, for someone to save her. The cabin looked away. She walked toward the exit. Her steps were heavy, deliberate, each one a statement. She paused at the door and turned back. You should be ashamed, she said to Ava. All of you should be ashamed. Then she was gone. The cabin exhaled. The tension released like air from a valve. Passengers returned to their phones, their books, their drinks. They pretended the moral earthquake hadn't happened. Ava sat in 2A at last. The seat felt the same as any other first-class seat. Leather, space, privacy. But the victory felt complicated. Earned, yes, but purchased with public exposure, with time, with energy that should have been preserved for the merger. She checked her phone. Her CFO had texted. Meeting moved up to 10:30. They want to vote before lunch. Any way you can make it? Ava looked at the time. Even with a perfect flight, she would arrive tight. One delay in the air, one slow taxi, one backed-up security line, and she would miss it. She had won her seat, but she might lose her mission. Marisol stopped by. Her voice was quiet. Dr. Robinson, I'm so sorry. For all of it. For suggesting you move. For not standing up immediately. For the delay. It's not your fault, Ava said. It is, partly, Marisol said. I was trained to keep the peace. But peace shouldn't require someone else's dignity. I see that now. What will you do? Ava asked. File a truthful report, Marisol said, even if it's inconvenient, even if it costs me. Ava nodded. She felt something shift. She hadn't just defended herself. She had invited others to choose differently, to do better. But the thought of the merger pressed in, the clinics that needed funding, the families that needed care. All of it threatened by one woman's entitlement. As the cabin settled, Ava stared at her phone. The consequences of righteousness could still hurt. Justice didn't always come with practical reward. The door closed again. The aircraft pushed back. And this time, it moved towards the runway. The aircraft finally pushed back. The engines hummed. The plane rolled toward the runway. The cabin settled into forced normalcy. Passengers put on headphones. They opened laptops. They closed their eyes. They pretended the moral earthquake hadn't happened. Ava stared at her phone. The message from her CFO glowed on the screen. Meeting at 10:30. Can you make it? She calculated. Flight time, taxi, security, traffic. Even with everything perfect, she would arrive at 10:45. 15 minutes late. Too late for the vote. Her throat tightened. She had stood her ground. She had defended her dignity. She had taught the cabin that bullying didn't work. But the clinics might suffer. The families who needed care. The mission that was bigger than her ego. All of it threatened because she had refused to shrink. Marisol passed through the cabin. She checked seatbelts, secured overhead bins. When she reached row 2, she paused. Is there anything I can do? Marisol asked quietly. Iva looked up. Can you change flight physics? Marisol smiled sadly. I wish I could. Then no, Ava said. But thank you for asking. I meant what I said earlier, Marisol continued. I'm filing a report, a truthful one, about the policies that pressure us to move the harmed person instead of enforcing fairness. That could cost you, Ava said. I know. Marisol's voice was steady. But peace without justice isn't really peace. It's just quiet injustice. Ava felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief. Something deeper. Connection. The knowledge that her stand had rippled beyond her own dignity. Thank you, Ava said. Marisol nodded and moved on. The plane accelerated. The wheels left the ground. And Ava watched the city shrink below, thinking about all the ways righteousness could cost more than she'd planned to pay. She texted her CFO. Flight delayed. Doing everything I can to make it. Have backup plan ready. The response came quickly. Investors are asking questions. They heard about an incident. Concerned about optics. Ava's stomach dropped. Optics. The euphemism for how quickly reputations were punished when a black woman was involved in incidents, even when she was right, especially when she was right. She stared at the message until the letters blurred. The familiar unfairness returned in a new suit. She had defended herself, and now she might be punished for it. Evan sat across the aisle. He watched Ava's face. He saw the exhaustion there, the weight, the private pain that no one applauded. He thought about what Ava had said. Courage was a decision made repeatedly, often late, but still worth making. He gathered himself. He stood. He crossed the aisle. Dr. Robinson? He said quietly. Ava looked up. Yes? I wanted to apologize, Evan said, for not speaking up sooner, for hesitating, for almost staying silent. You spoke up when it mattered, Ava said. But I almost didn't. Evan's voice was thick. I've done that before. Too many times. Watched harm happen and called it not my business. He sat on the armrest of the empty seat beside Ava. His hands trembled slightly. I'm a teacher, 52 years old. I made a vow to myself years ago. A vow to stop being the kind of man who watches injustice and does nothing. And today you kept that vow, Ava said. Barely. Evan looked at his hands. I was scared. Scared of making a scene? Scared of being wrong? Scared of what people would think? Ava felt the honesty in his words. She didn't rescue him from his discomfort. She let him own it. That was the only way change happened. Fear is normal, Ava said, but courage isn't a personality trait. It's a choice you make, again and again, sometimes late, sometimes imperfect, but still necessary. Evan nodded. His eyes were wet. If the airline asks for a statement, I'll write it. I'll sign it. I'll testify if needed, whatever it takes. Thank you, Ava said. No. Evan's voice broke slightly. Thank you for showing me what dignity looks like under pressure, for not backing down, for teaching all of us something we needed to learn. He returned to his seat. Ava watched him go. She felt something shift inside her. She hadn't just defended her dignity. She had invited someone else to wake up, to change, to choose differently next time. But her phone buzzed again. Another message from her CFO. Board asking if you'll make a statement about the delay, smoothing things over with investors. Ava stared at the screen. A statement, smoothing things over, apologizing for being wronged to protect the deal. For the first time, she considered it, not because it was right, because it might save the mission, the clinics, the families, the people who needed what her company could provide. She looked out the window. Clouds stretched endlessly. She felt loneliness press in, a quiet, private despair that no one applauded. Moral victory didn't always come with practical reward. Nina emerged from economy during a calm stretch of flight. She walked slowly through the aisle. Her scrubs marked her as medical. Her posture marked her as exhausted. She paused near first class. She looked at Ava with hesitation. The hesitation of someone used to being told she didn't belong. Dr. Robinson, Nina said quietly. Ava looked up. She recognized the young physician from the gate. Yes? I'm Nina Clark. I saw what happened, earlier. Nina's voice was low. Private. I wanted to thank you. For what? Ava asked. For not backing down. Nina glanced around, making sure no one else was listening. I work at Chicago Memorial, pediatric resident, and I've watched scenes like that one before. Different settings, same dynamic. She sat on the armrest of the empty seat. Patients who doubt my credentials, nurses who defer to male residents over me, attendings who speak over me in rounds, all of it designed to make me prove myself constantly. Ava heard the familiar pain in Nina's words. She knew that exhaustion, that endless proving. It's exhausting, Nina said. And the worst part is they want you to stay quiet, to smile, to not make it uncomfortable. Because if you speak up, suddenly you're difficult. You're playing the race card. You're the problem. Yes, Ava said simply. I've stayed quiet so many times, Nina continued. Her voice cracked slightly. Because I'm tired. Because I need to survive residency. Because I tell myself it's not worth the fight. She looked at Ava directly. But watching you today, watching you stand there and refuse to move, refuse to apologize, refuse to make their comfort more important than your dignity, it reminded me of something. What? Ava asked. That anger is understandable, Nina said. That boundaries are necessary, that I don't owe anyone a performance. I owe myself the truth. Ava felt her throat tighten. This was why she had stood, Not for applause, not for victory. For this. For the moment when someone else learned they didn't have to shrink. "You're going to be a great doctor," Ava said. "Not because you'll learn to tolerate disrespect, but because you'll refuse to let it define you." Nina's shoulders loosened, as if she'd set something down. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Ava said. "Just remember this the next time someone tries to make you smaller. Remember you have a choice." Nina nodded. She stood. She returned to economy carrying a new posture, a new awareness. A small flame of courage passed forward. Ava watched her go. She felt the purpose of her pain widen. This was larger than a seat, larger than a meeting, larger than her own dignity. But her phone buzzed again. The reality pressed back in, the merger, the vote, the consequences still waiting on the ground. Ava checked the time again. The flight was smooth, but time moved relentlessly. Each minute brought her closer to missing the vote. She opened her email. The investor deck was there, the financial projections, the clinic expansion plans, 5 new locations in underserved neighborhoods, free preventive care, maternal health services, community health workers, hundreds of families who needed what her company could provide. All of it dependent on this merger. All of it threatened because she had defended herself. She stared at the numbers until they blurred. The old question returned. The impossible calculation. Was her dignity worth more than their care? She thought about her board, about the investors who were concerned about optics, about how quickly a black woman's righteousness could be reframed as difficult, unprofessional, risky. She thought about the alternative, about apologizing publicly, about framing the incident as a misunderstanding, about smoothing things over to protect the deal. It would work. She knew it would work. People loved it when you made their comfort easy, when you shrank yourself to fit their narrative. But what would it cost? She looked out the window. The clouds looked solid from above, as if you could walk on them, as if they could hold weight. She thought about Marisol's words. Peace without justice isn't really peace. She thought about Nina's gratitude, about Evan's awakening, about all the people who had watched her stand and learned something they needed to know. She thought about the woman she wanted to be, the leader her company needed, the person she saw when she looked in the mirror. And she made her choice. She opened a new email. She began typing. Not an apology, not a smoothing over, a statement of facts. Clear, calm, unweaponized. She detailed what happened, what it cost, what it meant. She refused to frame discrimination as misunderstanding. She refused to make anyone's comfort more important than truth. When she finished, she read it twice. Then she sent it to her board. Her phone buzzed immediately, her CFO calling. Ava sent it to voicemail. She would talk later, but she wouldn't change the statement. She had chosen the higher ground, whatever it cost, whatever came next. She asked Marisol for pen and paper. She began drafting a more detailed account. For the airline, for the record. For anyone who needed to understand what happened and why it mattered. Marisol stopped by again. "Dr. Robinson, Captain Reyes wants to speak with you when we land, if you're willing." "About what?" Ava asked. "About filing a formal report," Marisol said. "He wants your account, and he wants to ensure our safety protocols aren't used to silence truth." Ava felt something shift. Not triumph. Something steadier. The knowledge that truth was spreading, that the system was being challenged, that her stand had opened doors for change. "I'll speak with him," Ava said. The plane began its descent. Chicago emerged below. The city sprawled in every direction. Buildings, roads, lives intersecting. Ava's phone buzzed constantly. Messages, emails, calls, her assistant, her board members, her investors, everyone weighing in, everyone calculating the cost of her dignity. She turned the phone face down. She would deal with it on the ground, but she wouldn't change course. Evan caught her eye across the aisle. He nodded. A small gesture. But it meant something. Solidarity, support. The knowledge that he had witnessed and would continue witnessing. Graham kept his eyes down. He hadn't spoken since his earlier comment. Shame had a particular kind of silence. He couldn't undo what he'd said. But he could carry it forward. Learn from it. Choose differently next time. The wheels touched down. The cabin applauded lightly. The ritual of safe arrival. But Ava felt the real arrival was something else. The landing in a new understanding. A new commitment. A new relationship with truth. The plane taxied. Ava gathered her belongings. She checked the time. 10:40. She had 10 minutes to make a meeting 20 minutes away. She had lost the race. But she had won something else, something that would last longer than one merger, one vote, one deal. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Passengers stood. They gathered bags. They prepared to disperse into their separate lives. But something had changed in that cabin. Something small but real. A shift in awareness. A crack in the comfortable silence that enabled injustice. Ava stood. She walked toward the exit. And in that walk, she carried herself with the dignity that had never left. That had only been challenged, and defended, and recognized. The jet bridge felt longer than usual. Ava walked steadily, not rushing, not retreating, just moving forward. At the gate, an airline manager waited. He wore a pressed uniform and carried a tablet. His face held formal concern. "Dr. Robinson?" he asked. "Yes," Ava said. "I'm Gerald Kim, operations manager. I wanted to speak with you about the incident on Flight 447. Ava stopped. Other passengers flowed around them. Some glanced curiously. Most just wanted to reach their connections. "I'm listening," Ava said. Kim glanced at the crowd. "Perhaps we could speak somewhere more private?" "Here is fine," Ava said. She was done with private conversations that made her retreat. Kim hesitated, then nodded. "We want to apologize for the disruption and inconvenience. We'd like to offer you compensation. Flight vouchers, upgrades, whatever would make this right." Ava heard the familiar script. Money could replace dignity. Vouchers could buy silence. Compensation could close the conversation. "I don't want vouchers," Ava said. Kim looked surprised. "Then what can we do?" "Accountability," Ava said. "Training, policy changes, a commitment not to move the harmed person to fix someone else's discomfort." She saw Kim's face shift. This wasn't the script he'd expected. This required more than a transaction. Marisol appeared beside them. She had changed out of her uniform into civilian clothes. Her shoulders were squared. Her voice was steady. "I'm filing a report about what happened," Marisol said. "About the pressure to prioritize departure over fairness. About the policies that train us to appease the loudest person instead of protecting the person being harmed." She looked at Kim directly. "Dr. Robinson is right. We need systemic change, not just case-by-case compensation." Kim shifted his weight. "I'll need to escalate this to corporate." "Then escalate it," Ava said. "But I want a record, a formal complaint, documentation of what happened and what needs to change." Evan approached. He had been waiting nearby. "I'll sign a witness statement, whatever's needed." Graham appeared as well. He looked uncomfortable, uncertain, but he spoke anyway. "I'll confirm the seat assignment, if it helps." His voice was quiet, apologetic without explicitly apologizing. But it was something. A small step toward accountability. Kim pulled out his tablet. I'll take your statements now, all of you. Ava provided her account. Factual, detailed, unembellished, just the truth. Marisol added her perspective. The internal pressure, the metrics that rewarded speed over justice, the training that taught appeasement. Evan described what he witnessed: the boarding pass, the refusal, the weaponized safety claim. Graham confirmed the seat assignment. He didn't mention his earlier comment, but his presence was a form of correction. Silent acknowledgement that he'd chosen the wrong side. Kim typed everything. He promised escalation, policy review, training updates. Ava recognized bureaucratic fog when she heard it, but she also heard something real underneath. The possibility of change. Small, incremental, but real. Ava checked her phone. 10:55. The merger vote was over. Her assistant had texted. Board proceeded without you. Vote delayed until Monday. Investors want to meet with you first. She stared at the message. Not with defeat, with clarity. She had missed today's vote, but she had preserved something more important: the integrity of her mission, the moral spine of her organization, the alignment between her values and her actions. She texted back, "Schedule the meeting. I'll be ready." Captain Reyes approached. He was out of uniform, older than Ava expected. His face was lined with years of responsibility. "Dr. Robinson," he said, "I'm Daniel Reyes. I flew your aircraft today." "Captain," Ava acknowledged. "I want to apologize," Reyes said, "for the delay, for the discomfort, for the failure of our systems to protect you immediately." "It's not your fault," Ava said. "It's partially my responsibility," Reyes said. "I'm working with operations to review our policies, to ensure safety protocols aren't weaponized, to train crews on recognizing bias and enforcing fairness." He pulled out a business card. "If you need anything, statements, testimony, documentation, please contact me directly." Ava took the card. She felt something warm in her chest. Not victory, something steadier. The knowledge that truth was creating ripples, that her stand had opened space for institutional reflection. "Thank you," Ava said. Reyes nodded. "No, thank you. For holding the line, for refusing to let comfort override justice. We needed that lesson." He walked away, and Ava stood in the terminal feeling the weight and the lightness of what she'd done. She had lost time, maybe money, possibly professional relationships, but she had gained something irreplaceable: the knowledge that she hadn't contaminated her purpose with submission, that she had chosen truth even when truth was expensive. Nina appeared in the crowd. She was heading toward the train. She waved. Ava waved back. Two women. Different generations. Different paths. Same understanding. Dignity wasn't negotiable. Truth wasn't optional. And sometimes the most important thing you could do was stand. Ava took a rideshare to her office. The city moved past the windows. People, traffic, lives continuing in their separate orbits. She arrived at 11:30. Her team was waiting. Their faces were worried, curious, supportive, uncertain. Her CFO met her at the elevator. "The board wants a video call, now." "Give me 5 minutes," Ava said. She went to her office. She closed the door. She stood by the window looking out at the skyline. She thought about the clinics, the families, the mission that drove everything she did. She thought about how easy it would be to apologize, to frame the incident as unfortunate, to prioritize the deal over the truth. She thought about Brittany's performance, about how many times that performance had worked, about how silence enabled injustice to compound. She thought about Marisol's courage, Evan's awakening, Nina's gratitude, Captain Reyes's commitment. All the people who had chosen truth because she had chosen it first. She opened her laptop. She joined the video call. The board appeared on screen. 12 faces, some concerned, some supportive, some calculating risk. The chairman spoke first. Ava, we're glad you're safe. We heard about the incident on the plane. Can you explain what happened? Ava told them. Simply. Factually. Without decoration or defensiveness. She told them about the seat, the refusal, the weaponized fear, the delay, the consequences. Some board members nodded. Others frowned. One interrupted. This is unfortunate timing. The investors are concerned about distraction, about optics, about whether you can maintain focus on the merger. Ava felt the familiar pressure, the calculation, the suggestion that her dignity was a distraction from more important things. Let me be clear, Ava said. Her voice was calm but firm. This wasn't a distraction. This was the mission. The board went quiet. We're building a company based on equity and care, Ava continued. We're trying to serve communities that have been underserved, communities where people face discrimination in healthcare every day. She leaned toward the camera. If I had apologized for defending myself today, if I had framed discrimination as misunderstanding just to make investors comfortable, what would that say about our values? What would that say about whether we actually believe in the mission we claim to serve? The silence stretched. A board member she'd worked with for years spoke. His name was Robert Chen. He had gray hair and kind eyes. He had once underestimated her, but he had learned. You're right, Chen said. Our mission means nothing if we practice silence when it costs us. Another board member nodded, then another. The room recalibrated. The investors want to meet with you, the chairman said, before we proceed with the vote. They want assurance that this won't become a pattern. Tell them I'll meet, Ava said, and I'll tell them exactly what I told you. That integrity isn't a distraction. It's the foundation, and if they can't understand that, they're not the right partners for this company. The chairman's face was unreadable. Then he smiled. Small. Genuine. I'll set up the meeting for Monday. The call ended. Ava closed her laptop. She felt clean, as if she'd refused to contaminate her purpose with submission. Her CFO knocked. How did it go? Honestly, Ava said. And? We'll see, Ava said, but I wouldn't change what I said. The weekend passed. Ava prepared for the investor meeting. She reviewed projections, refined strategy, practiced her pitch. But mostly she reflected. On dignity, on courage, on the cost of righteousness, and the value of truth. Monday morning arrived. The investor meeting was at 9. Ava dressed carefully. She carried her briefcase and her calm. She walked into the conference room ready. The investors were there. Serious faces. Expensive suits. The people who controlled capital and therefore controlled possibilities. They asked questions about the incident, about the delay, about whether she could maintain focus, about risk management, about optics. Ava answered each question. She didn't apologize. She didn't minimize. She explained. I defended my dignity because dignity isn't separate from our mission, she said. If I can't stand up for myself when I'm wronged, how can I promise to stand up for the communities we serve? She presented the clinic plans, the impact projections, the lives that would be changed, the health outcomes that would improve. This company exists because healthcare isn't equitable, Ava said, because Black and brown communities face discrimination at every level, because people deserve care that respects their humanity. She looked at each investor directly. I won't compromise that mission by pretending discrimination doesn't matter when it inconveniences us. If that's a problem, I understand. But I won't change course. The room was silent. The lead investor, a woman named Margaret Stone, leaned back in her chair. She had built her own firm from nothing. She understood difficult choices. I appreciate your honesty, Stone said, and your integrity. That's exactly why we're interested in this company. She looked at her colleagues. I move we proceed with the merger. Dr. Robinson has proven she has the moral clarity this mission requires. The other investors agreed. Not unanimously, but sufficiently. The vote passed. The merger would proceed. Ava felt relief wash through her, not because she'd won, because she hadn't had to lose herself to win. The meeting ended. Stone approached privately. "That took courage," she said. "A lot of CEOs would have apologized just to smooth things over." "I considered it," Ava admitted. "But you didn't," Stone said. "That's why you'll succeed, because you understand that some things can't be compromised." Ava thanked her. She walked out of the conference room feeling lighter than she had in days. Weeks passed. The merger moved forward. The clinics broke ground. The team hired community health workers. The mission expanded. But something else happened too. Something smaller but equally important. An internal airline memo circulated. Ava received a copy from Marisol. It detailed revised guidance on seating disputes, clearer enforcement protocols, training modules on bias and appeasement culture. The changes were small, not miracles, but real. Marisol texted. "Led a crew discussion about fairness in practice. Management actually listened. Thank you for showing us what was possible." Evan sent an email. He was back in his classroom. "I intervened when a student was being singled out last week. I heard your voice in mine. Calm, clear, uncompromising. Thank you for the example." Nina sent a short message after her residency evaluation. "I didn't shrink today. Attending questioned my assessment. I stood by it. He backed down. Your seat on that plane changed something in me." Ava read each message. She felt the purpose of her pain multiply. This was larger than one incident, one seat, one confrontation. This was about all the times someone would face discrimination and remember they had a choice. Remember they could stand. Remember that dignity was worth defending even when defense was expensive. Ava stood in her office by the window. The city stretched below. Thousands of lives, thousands of choices, thousands of moments where people decided between comfort and truth. She thought about the flight, about Brittany's performance and Marisol's courage and Evan's awakening, about all the ways one woman's refusal to shrink had created space for others to stand. She thought about justice, not as a single dramatic moment, but as a series of people choosing truth over comfort, choosing fairness over speed, choosing humanity over convenience. And in that reflection, she felt her dignity not restored, because it had never left, but recognized, witnessed, protected, and passed forward. She had defended her seat. But she had done something more. She had reminded people what was worth fighting for, what couldn't be compromised, what had to be preserved even when preservation was costly. The clinics would open. The families would receive care. The mission would continue. And somewhere, someone facing their own injustice would remember what was possible. They would remember that dignity wasn't proven by status, that courage wasn't a personality trait, but a decision made repeatedly. That truth could be expensive, but silence was more expensive still. Ava turned from the window. She had work to do, clinics to build, teams to lead, a mission to serve. But she carried something new now, the knowledge that she had chosen truth when truth was hard. And that choice had changed everything.